Welcome back to the Southern Report. Folks, things are changing very rapidly when it comes to vaccines and public perception of vaccines and even official narratives when it comes to vaccines. The once unshakable narrative surrounding injections, these vaccines, childhood vaccines, autism, and all the rest of it, appears to be rapidly crumbling. In fact, if you go over to the CDC website right now, you'll find something very interesting. Where it once said that the alleged link between autism and vaccines was a crazy conspiracy theorist and misinformation, it now says, and I'm going to quote for you, it says, the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. It says studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities, and it says HHS has launched a comprehensive assessment of the causes of autism, including investigations on plausible biologic mechanisms and potential causal links. Today, we have joining us Dr. Andrew Wakefield. He is actually the first medical professional, the first doctor to publish a serious study suggesting a possible link between autisms and vaccines. Andy, it's great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow. Tell us, what are your thoughts on this? Are you feeling vindicated?
Alex, it's great to be here. We are living in an extraordinary time. I mean, a year ago, I could not have imagined that all of this would have happened. And it's happened because Bobby Kennedy basically is the head of HHS in the current administration, and he has studied this subject for a very long time. He comes to it with an entirely new idea. Let me take you back, if I may, Alex, to the origin of the thinking, what we've been up against for 30 years now. And this is a document, this is from the Federal Register, so a federal document, and it's talking in this setting about polio vaccine and neurological injury. But this really characterizes the perception that public health have brought to bear on this issue for 30 years. Any possible doubts, whether or not well-founded, about the safety of the vaccine cannot be allowed to exist in view of the need to assure that the vaccine continues to be used to the maximum extent consistent with the nation's public health objectives. Science cannot be allowed to exist. That is how extraordinary, and that is untenable. How do you think you can ever preserve that edifice of false belief in the face of not only extensive injury to children, but scientists saying no, doctors saying no, we're going to investigate this because we believe it's real. And here we are, all these years later on, and there's a revolution, a turnaround. I never thought I'd live to see this. I hoped I did. I'm an sort of eternal optimist, but here we are. And I think it's beyond the tipping point. We're now going to uncover the truth. It's going to be a long and painful process, but nonetheless, we are in a much better position than we were when I first spoke to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you really went through hell to try to get this information out. I mean, I don't think I can even put into words what you went through. You were celebrated a physician, author. You graduated as a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons back in 1985. You were a fellow of the Royal College of Pathologists, and you published over 150 original scientific articles, books, chapters. You were invited to give scientific commentary. And then you stumbled across this apparent link between these injections and autism. And I mean, they took everything from you. I mean, they took your medical license. They took, I mean, all of it, your career, everything. So you went to making films. You made some incredible films, including you co-wrote and directed Vaxxed, From Cover Up to Catastrophe, wonderful movie. You've done a lot of really, really great work. In 2022, you released Infertility, A Diabolical Agenda with Robert Kennedy Jr. So you went into a different line of work, but I mean, they really came after you for that original study. Andy, do you still believe, because I know they came after that study like crazy too, do you still believe what you put in that study? Is that accurate despite all of the attacks on it?
That study is absolutely accurate. Every word in that has been scrutinized and time and again, and it's as true now as it was then. And all of the authors, and this is a crucial thing to say, is that none of the authors have recanted any of the findings any of the parent stories, any of the findings in the children, any of our conclusions. So that remains. And so the allegation of fraud, now that we're in a new era post-COVID, where we're familiar with the cancel culture. At the time, it didn't exist. And so unfortunately, at the time, it was me against, huge organizations and governments and NGOs and the pharmaceutical industry. And it's easy to be completely overwhelmed. Now we're seeing some of the finest physicians in the country, in the world, being dismissed from their jobs for criticizing the COVID shot and COVID vaccine policy. So now the world is familiar with this, and it's not a surprise that it happened all the way back then. But we're in a different world.
Yeah, we are, and the CDC's own data shows parents have really lost confidence in the narrative surrounding these injections. They're either delaying or refusing a lot of injections. It's truly an extraordinary time, and I think you had a lot to do with that, Andy. Now, you've been involved with a whole bunch of really interesting projects. One that I wanted to mention briefly, our mutual friend Richard House took the lead on this, but it's called Humanizing Science and Medicine, Critical Paradigmatic Conversations. You contributed just one chapter to this book. It started out as a blurb, but it's a very interesting piece of work. It's got contributions from a lot of very well-known people in this space. Talk to us a little bit about this book, Humanizing Science and Medicine. Why did you choose to lend your name to this?
Well, it was an excellent piece of scholarship, and it tried to piece together why we're in the current circumstance that we find ourselves, how science has been perverted, corrupted, misinterpreted, misrepresented. I mean, for example, we talk about the consensus of the experts. Well, dear God, protect us from those experts, because they did so much damage during COVID, and they will not be trusted ever again. But it was really, science is about consensus. No, it isn't. Consensus is the death of science. What you need to do is ask difficult questions in order to answer the questions that have hitherto been unanswerable. So where was the epidemic of autism coming from? We had to answer that question. The response of the experts was to say there is no epidemic of autism. Well, now that is firmly established, and everything that the parents told me all those years ago has turned out to be the truth. Everything that the experts have told me has been false. And this book really characterizes the mindset that led to so much of the false narrative that we're living with now.
Yeah. And Andy, there's been a lot of developments coming very rapidly. The most recent by Del Bigtree. I know you've worked with him in the past. The new movie Inconvenient Study, where this very high-ranking, very well-known doctor at the Ford Health System actually did the study that we've all been hoping to see, comparing vaxxed versus unvaxxed, and the findings were so explosive that they decided not to publish the study. It's very clear that Big Pharma and the medical establishment is not just going to roll over and play dead here. They're going to keep fighting back. Where do you think this goes in the context of COVID? I do agree with you that a lot of people have woken up. We're not buying the narrative anymore. But where do you think Big Pharma and the medical establishment is going to come down? How is this going to go moving forward?
Well, you're absolutely right. They're going to fight tooth and nail to preserve what is a huge, huge marketplace for them. And the other thing is that with the current and ongoing failure of the old vaccines, like the measles, mumps, and rubella live vaccines and others, they are now looking to mRNA-based shots as a future for all childhood vaccines where it's feasible, and that should fill us with absolute horror. Suffice to say that that is a huge marketplace for them, but in the end, the market will win. The market will prevail, and the market is the consumer. And the consumer has had enough. When I got involved in this, Alex, originally a handful of people worldwide were prepared to engage in a thorny debate about the safety of vaccines. It was safe and effective, and that's it. Now it's half the adult population of the world, after the films that have been made, the stories that have been told, and now our experience with COVID. Half the adult population of the world are saying, no, stop. There's a problem. We're not going to comply with what you've demanded of us because we no longer trust you. So I think we're beyond the tipping point, but certainly in the end, the market is going to prevail. The market will win. You
I
cannot
hope you're
force
right.
people to inject things into their bodies and the bodies of their children in the face of the prevailing evidence.
Yeah, amen. And actually, I'm living in ground zero right now for that very discussion. Our state here in Florida is working on ending the mandates that we inject our children with all kinds of injections to be able to send them to school. And I do believe your work has been a major factor in bringing about this awareness. In fact, the last time you and I spoke, Andy, was about your movie 1986 that you released in 2020 about that law purporting to give total immunity to all the vaccine manufacturers of these childhood vaccines. I mean, it seems like incredible that in 5 years we have seen such a rapid shift in public opinion and everything that's going on. We're almost out of time, Andy, but I do want to ask you, got an upcoming project that you and I talked about a little bit in the break. It's called The Bequest. You've got a new film that you're working on. Tell us about it. When can people see it? Where can people see it? How can people see it?
Well, the film has been so important, so impactful for changing minds. You can change millions of people's minds in a very short space of time with a well-made movie. And this is a story about as I say, we're beyond the tipping point for the change in vaccines policy and our understanding of adverse reactions. But what I want to make sure is that those who have been injured, the children who are left on the battlefield in man's quest to conquer infectious disease, are not left behind. And there are many, many, many of them. Families whose lives have been overturned, destroyed by this. And so this is a story about a mother's love for her child and the extent to which she's prepared to go to protect him, because their greatest fear is that when parents become infirm or die, what will happen to my child? There's no one who cares for them or understands them or loves them, and they will die on the street if nothing is done. And so it's a film that really focuses upon that. So if there's anyone out there, Alex, any of your listeners who want to get involved in such a film, we'd love to hear from them.
What's the best way to do that, Andy? Is there a website, a social media? Where can people follow you?
The best place to go to is our website, info@wakefieldmediagroup.com. So the website is wakefieldmediagroup, one word.com. And if you send an email to info@wakefieldmediagroup.com, you can get hold of us.
wakefieldmediagroup.com. Folks, go check it out. Andy Wakefield, thank you very much for all your work all these years. I know it wasn't easy, but humanity owes you a great debt of gratitude. So thank you for standing firm. Thank you for sounding the alarm all those years ago. And thank you for the work you're still doing today. It's been a great honor and a privilege to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you, sir. All right, folks, stay with us. We got one more segment here on the Sentinel Report. We'll be right back.